Welcome, everybody, to the wrap for May 29th, 2026. I'm Mike Wood. This week, we'll take a look at 1990s professional wrestling. Workday makes Gemini its default brain. Their lawsuit clears another hurdle. And the EEOC you might have missed in funding. There's two acquisitions this week I want you to pay attention to. JobGet buys Ripple Match. Job List gets bought by Bold. In hot takes, Brian Fink on the Jevons paradox and why software engineering jobs are actually rising now. And two podcast interviews from Vegas. Right matches Sterling Smith and Fountain's Peter Eisenman are both pitching interview every applicant, but they're coming from opposite ends of the funnel. And we'll close out the show with worries from the Philly Fed, and hundreds of Reese monkeys are on the loose in Florida. Let's get at it. Hit the theme song.
It's the wrap. Short tech news and shenanigans. It's the wrap. Here's your host, Mike Wood.
So if you watch the WWF, now the WWE, in the early 90s, you may remember this scene. So in 1993, hero Bret the Hitman Hart has a gigantic sumo wrestler villain, Yokozuna, seen here on the mat. He's trying to put Yokozuna's big beefy legs into his sharpshooter finisher. He's seconds from winning the title. He's a hero. Look at this. He's about to get the pin on him, but then the ref gets distracted, looks the other way at some manufactured nonsense at the far turnbuckle, and Yokozuna's manager, Mr. Fuji, also evil, reaches into his ceremonial salt bucket and flings a handful of it into Bret Hart's face. Yokozuna pins him, the title changes hands, and the crowd goes nuts. Now, I was a kid yelling at the TV at the blatant cheating with no consequences. And like the salt right there, it's right there. Everybody can see it, this mysterious white stuff that's in Bret Hart's face, but yet it seems fixed and no one's calling it. So on the first story I wanted to touch on today is that on May 14th, the EEOC, under acting chair Andrea Lucas, who we talked about before, sent the White House a proposal to end EEO1 reporting. EEO1 is the 60-year-old data collection requirement on race, sex, and national origin in the workforce. It's civil rights era. It's foundational. Story 2 this week we're seeing is that a federal judge in California, Judge Rita Lynn, issued a tentative ruling that Workday will likely have to face a nationwide class action suit arguing its AI hiring tools screening applicants out by race, age, and disability. Derek Mobley's case keeps on surviving every motion designed to kill it. If you read those side by side, one arm of the government is agreeing in open court that an algorithm can discriminate and somebody can be held accountable, but yet the other arm of the government is moving to switch off the data set that has historically been how anyone has proved discrimination happened at scale. We are sharpening the penalty for hiring discrimination and unscrewing the smoke detector that proves it happens at the same time. So by two different arms of the government that aren't talking to each other. Why are they moving in opposite directions? Well, because the courts and the EEOC are independent. Nobody is coordinating this, which is somehow worse. And this isn't a new playbook either. Do you remember in June of 2020, in the fun COVID times, President Trump said COVID testing was a double-edged sword. He said, quote, when you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people. You're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down. You know what? Massage the data, the problem goes away. EEO1 is the testing regime for hiring discrimination. The problem isn't going to vanish. The reporting does, so no one has to answer for it. We're about to find out whether that algorithm actually discriminated right as we turn off the one tool that could prove it did. And I don't know yet whether this is the beginning of real accountability or the most sophisticated salt in the eyes trick that we've ever run. Now let's walk through what else is going on this week.
Short tech news of the week.
I will never get sick of that. So good news and bad news for Workday this week. In good news, Workday announced an expanded Google Cloud partnership, and Gemini is now the default AI model inside Santa for Workday. Now, we've been watching the big three, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, move into a foundational layer within HR tech all year. This is Google planting a flag. Workday is the system of record for 65% of the Fortune 500. So the practical effect is this. The AI brain inside the dominant enterprise HCM is now Google's. So 3 things to track on this. 1, Vendor lock-in has just shifted up the stack. It used to be we're on Workday for HCM. Now it's we're on Workday for HCM, which means we're on Google for AI. And that matters for any HR leader trying to standardize their AI tech stack across vendors. Number two, the foundational model companies are no longer optional. A year ago, HR teams could choose whether to bring AI into the workflow. Now that platform is choosing for you. The agentic layer comes with a logo on it. And three, watch what Workday says next. Microsoft has been deep with OpenAI. SAP is calling itself an AI company. The market is consolidating into roughly 3 flavors of foundation model plus HCM, and the choice you make on one increasingly chooses the other for you. That's the partnerships news. Now let's get on to the bad news for Workday this week. So switch slides. Here we go. All right. So this is Derek Mobley. He's behind the case, the class action case against Workday. And his case keeps surviving every motion designed to kill it. Mobley is a Black job seeker over 40 with a disability who alleges Workday's AI screening tools rejected him from over 100 jobs. This week, U.S. District Judge Rita Lynn issued a tentative ruling that Workday will likely have to defend the case as a nationwide class action. Judge Lynn found that California's Fair Employment and Fair Housing Act appears to apply nationally to the class. Every hiring decision from Workday's software that they touched anywhere in the country is applicable to this. So she cited 2 state appeals decisions to back the read. Oral arguments are set for June 15th, so this is not final, but it's still moving, which by itself is news because every motion before this one was designed to make it stop moving. Here's the part that should sit with every vendor watching this. The legal theory here is not just this employer discriminated, it's that the screening vendor is an agent of every employer that uses its tool, which turns a screening company into a single point of legal liability for its entire customer base. So you don't have to sue 1,000 employers individually anymore. You sue Workday, and you can reach all of them. Now, that's a company-ending liability hanging over every hiring vendor, and especially over the new entrants. The AI company or the AI interview companies that I talk about here, they don't have Workday's legal headcount and balance sheet to handle this kind of compliance exposure. So if you're a CHRO buying any AI-touched hiring tool right now, the question on your due diligence just got a lot sharper. Who's liable when the algorithm discriminates, and can the vendor actually defend the answer? And if you're a vendor, you better have that answer. Moving on to some hot mess in the Trump administration. On May 14th, the EEOC sent a proposal to the White House to end the EEO-1 reporting. I talked about this a little bit in the opening. EEO-1 has been around since the civil rights movement. It requires companies with 100 plus employees and federal contractors with 50 plus employees to file annual workforce data on race, sex, and national origin. It's how you see the workforce composition at scale. Acting Chair Andrea Lucas isn't stopping there. She also wants to roll back unspecified requirements under Title VII, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Let's just take away more rights. The reason this matters, and former EEOC Jerry Yang made this point exactly when the news broke, is that EEO-1 data is the critical tool for surfacing hiring discrimination that is otherwise really hard to prove. Concrete example, the 2017 Bass Pro Shops case, EEO-1 patterns drove a $10.5 million settlement, and without that data, the pattern doesn't show up. So pull the reporting and that pattern matching evaporates. The problem doesn't vanish, the reporting does, which means nobody has to answer for it. This is the COVID testing playbook. Slow the testing down, case hunt goes down. Check it out. I have a full write-up in this week's wrap. Check it out on ilovethewrap.com. Moving on to some funding and acquisitions news this week. I'll make this a little bigger so you can see it. All right. JobGet has acquired RippleMatch. JobGet has been the heavyweight in hourly hiring for a while. They say 100 million plus candidate network that they have. That's great. RippleMatch was the early career and campus recruiting play for graduating seniors, internship pipelines, and matching tech. JobGet bought the whole stack and folded the student pool in. Second, JobList got acquired by Bold. Those are the people who also own Monster and Career Builder, I believe. It's Bold is, yeah. So they own a bunch of things. The pattern across both deals is that the consumer grade job search layer is getting rolled up. Standalone candidate first job boards have had a hard time monetizing without leaning back towards the employer. The exit to get scooped up by someone who already has the employer revenue figured it out. moving into some hot takes. This guy is Brian Fink. Brian Fink is a friend of the program, and he's my featured pick on therap.com or ilovetherap.com. He's seen here in his Kaleidoscope shirt, I believe. So he wrote something pretty interesting this week that caught my eyes. So he frames that he took a look at software engineering jobs, and if you notice on the bottom right here, they start to take off. So he wants to challenge the narrative that software engineering jobs are dying, and he frames it under the Jevons paradox. So quick economics 101 for anyone who didn't take it, including me. The Jevons paradox says that when you make a resource more efficient, total consumption rises. The classic example is when steam engines got more efficient at using coal, the coal industry didn't shrink. It exploded because suddenly you could justify steam power in places that you couldn't before. So Brian's applying this to code. AI made software cheap, so what used to be an expensive bespoke build is now affordable for every regional law firm, every mid-market manufacturer, every state agency that previously made do with off-the-shelf. For example, the Wrap. If I started the Wrap 5 years ago, I would have had to have a web team. Now, with AI, I don't need a web team, but I would like to have one eventually at some point. But so the replacement narrative on tech jobs may be wrong in a really specific way. AI didn't replace the engineer. It replaced the barrier to entry for the engineer's market, which expanded the market. So I think Brian's onto something here. The headlines that say tech jobs are dying are just reading layoffs. The actual data shows that software work is spreading horizontally into industries that previously couldn't justify it. What I want to see is whether the salaries will continue to move over to, or whether the value prop of being a software engineer just got tanked with AI. All right, couple podcasts this week, both from my time in Vegas this spring. I did a lot of talking to people on the ground, and we're still rolling them out. So there's more coming. But I talked to two AI interviewer companies, and they're both pitching the same counterintuitive thing: interview every applicant, but from opposite ends of the funnel. So the first one I talked to is Sterling Smith. He's the CEO of Right Match, and we don't really we talk about application inflation, which I've been calling out for weeks, but he notes that the average opening pulls in 250 plus resumes now, and recruiters don't have the capacity to handle that. So his answer is to move the interview to day one. This is something that we've been talking about in early editions of the Wrap, that the AI agent autonomously invites the most qualified applicants based on their ATS data to a 5 to 15 minute video first interview. The interview is ranked and scored, and the output flows back into the AS. But that interview also serves as a validation and screening tool at the front end of the funnel. Now, on the other side of my interviews this week is Peter Eisenman from Fountain. Peter's conversation is about who actually blocks AI adoption inside a large enterprise. His read is that a CHRO has to be a tinkerer in chief. Those are his words. The CHRO role has traditionally been about policy, compliance, and people operations, but Peter's argument is that the modern version of this job has to include hands-on AI experimentation. Not policy oversight of someone else's AI tools, but actually using the tools and figuring out where they fit. Let's take a look at a clip from Peter's interview. And they all look exactly the same except for a few.
Yeah. So I think start with small tests, right? Not every voice agent sounds the same, right? Are they screening? Are they answering FAQs? Does it sound like a human conversation or this weird thing? What we've seen is 75% of applicants choose an immediate interview with an AI interview versus scheduling time for a face-to-face interview.
Yeah, that screening call is worthless.
Exactly. So give that to an agent and start small. You don't need to have every single employee go through it all at once, or applicant go through it all at once. You don't need to have it for all positions and all locations. Start small, see it prove out, and continually build on that.
I love my hallway conversation. So please check out both those interviews. They're up on HR.com under the Totally Talent podcast section. I also linked to them on the Wrap. I wanted to pull up, there were a couple stories that caught my eye this week that I wanted to pull up as something to kind of flag for you. So the Fed in Philadelphia is getting a little bit nervous, and I know I'm kind of, the sky is falling type guy, but I'd just like to keep an eye on our numbers to just see where we are, because I don't believe the numbers that the government is putting out in their hiring data. Anyway, the Fed is put the GDP growth cut to 2.1% annualized for Q2. They cut to 2.2% for the full year. The inflation forecast pushed up to 6% for Q2. That's a meaningful revision against a backdrop where inflation was supposed to keep cooling. And we keep hearing that inflation is sitting around 3 to 4% like normal. So also expected monthly job creation revised down to 43,000 from 70,000. It's almost in half. That's quick math there. That's a 38% cut to the monthly hiring expectation. And the projected unemployment moved up to 4.5%. Recession odds, hey, get on Kalshi, because the recession odds are up over the next 12 months. They have ticked from 25% to 30%. I think we're already in some sort of a recession, or at least a holding pattern. There's weaker growth, hotter prices, fewer jobs, higher unemployment, good times here in the USA, and there's a higher recession probability. This is the rare forecast where every needle moves in the wrong way at once. So I just want people to be aware of this, and that if you've been telling yourself the labor market just feels soft this spring, there's a bunch of economics people that would agree with you. So plan accordingly. So I try to do some fun segments here on the wrap, and I've started thinking about a weird news of the week, and so I looked up some weird news this week, which always makes me laugh. And turns out a Florida woman this week looked into the preserve behind her house, saw what she thought was a large cat, watched it stand up, which cats don't do. And well, they can do, but they don't normally do it. And she realized it was a monkey, specifically a Reese Marquet. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. But Mike, you say, aren't those monkeys native to Asia? Yes, they are. So I went down a rabbit hole to figure out how these monkeys got to Florida, and it's a great story. So in 1938, a tour boat operator named Colonel Toohey, he decided that his attraction at Silver Springs, which is this nature preserve, he thinks it would feel more Tarzan with monkeys. And you can't blame him. That Tarzan movie came out in 1932 and probably was like the coolest thing ever. So he buys 6 of these monkeys and he releases them on an island in the spring. Now, he releases them on an island because good, they'll be stuck there. What he didn't know is that the monkeys are strong swimmers. So the monkeys immediately looked around and went, let's go over there. And so he lost the monkeys. So what does Colonel Toohey do? He buys 6 more monkeys. And guess what? Those escaped too. And nearly a century later, there are hundreds of them across the state. And a meaningful portion of them, which means more than one, carry herpes B, which is, fun fact, often fatal to humans. So that's the story. A guy in 1938 wanted his tourist trap to feel a little bit more Tarzan, and now Florida has a wild monkey population, and some of them are carrying a herpes virus. There's a loose connection here to HR tech leaders. One, when you introduce something into your environment, you cannot unintroduce it. Once the monkeys are loose, they are loose forever. I'm going to put that on a pillow in my house. Once the monkeys are loose, they're loose forever. The same is true of most of the AI tools that we've been talking about for the last 6 months. Once it's in the workflow, you're not pulling it back. And number 2, sometimes the second order affects the 90 years sometimes it takes 90 years to figure something out. And Colonel Toohey did not know that in 1938 that he was permanently changing the Florida ecosystem. But we probably also don't know which of the AI hiring decisions we make in 2026 will turn out in 100 years or so to be monkeys with the herpes equivalent. So that's it for the wrap this year. If you're not subscribed to Wrap, head over to ilovethewrap.com. It hits your inbox every Friday. There's sharp takes, there's real news, and there's some shenanigans in there. Also, big announcement, Wrap Plus, which is the layer of the Wrap that I put a ton of information about vendors and jobs and what's happening in the space and labor market. I was going to put that behind a paywall. Not anymore. It's free for everybody. So now just subscribe. All you can do, you'll get all those added resources to help you. So thank you everybody for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. And that's it for the wrap.